Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Asperger syndrome, and I'm going to specifically go over um, really the subtypes and the signs and symptoms, if I can find my note card, which I don't think I can. Oh well. I've been doing a lot of research lately. I'm an Aspie myself. I've been doing a lot of research lately on Asperger's, really, to find out more about it and kind of just further my knowledge on what I've already known my whole life, but never able to put it into perspective as to why. I knew what was going on to a degree, but I didn't know why. Now I know why. Um, let's see. The first subtype that I'd like to go over is, I think, the one everybody looks for um, in the Aspie, and that would be the outcast. The outcast, it's kind of self-explanatory. The outcast will try to make friends and try to interact socially, but they're outcasted, they're pushed away because they really don't have a good grasp of what is and is not appropriate in social situations, or they just don't understand the different cues. They don't pick up on things as easily as, or at all, compared to neurotypicals or the normal people. Um, so the outcast is going to have trouble making friends and probably be more prone to depression than the rest of, or the other two subtypes of Aspies, because they're trying to make friends but constantly failing, and they don't really know how to fix it. Um, so that's the one that I wanted to go over first, because it seems to be the most prominent. The second one I want to go over is probably the most prominent in women, female Aspies, or as Judy Simone puts it, not Judy, sorry, Rudy, bad with names, apparently. Rudy Simone puts it, Asper girl. The Asper girls tend to be the actors, rather than actresses, but, you know, it's a subtype, the actor. This subtype has learned over time, learned enough basic social skills to be able to fit in and look normal on the outside. On the inside, the process is really still the same, um, but they do pick up on social cues a lot better because they've learned how, rather than having to rely on what words are being said and then the miscommunications that come with that. So I fall under that category. I started really making friends for the first time. I mean, I made friends consistently for the first time when I was in 7th grade, and those friends were already outcasts. Those friends were already the weird and eccentric, and um, even then, they would tell me a joke, and I didn't get it. And so they still thought that I was weird, but they were weird too, so it was okay. Then I actually started making more normal friends in high school, probably my sophomore year. My freshman year was okay. I did decently, but my sophomore year was what really um, stood out for me, and that's when I really started to make friends. And then my senior year, I got so good at the acting that um, I started making, I moved schools, and I was so good at being able to act normal that I made tons of friends, and I actually had a very large group of friends. However, those group of friends were still the really nerdy, the weird ones, but everybody kind of liked those. At that school, it wasn't like those people are outcasted. Everybody was really friends with everybody, and that was a blessing, really. I mean, I'm not religious, but it was a blessing. But basically the actor will be able to fit in, and they can actually make friends, but it is very tiring. We still prefer to be alone most of the time. Just because we can pretend to fit in doesn't mean we like to pretend to fit in. I really don't. That's my personal opinion. I don't like to pretend that I'm someone I'm not, or have to work off of what they give me rather than work off of what I know internally. But that's the way it has to be, unfortunately, or else I would have no friends. Which right now, actually, I only have 2 friends: my boyfriend and my friend from that I've been friends with since middle school, who's the only reason we're still friends is because she constantly and persistently calls me, because I won't call her. Rarely I'll call her. Okay, and the third one, and these are just the basic subtypes. There are going to be other subtypes, but the third one is the loner. And the loner happens to be basically the schizoid Aspie. And I have the DSM-4. Yay, DSM-4. Which goes over what the different personality types, or personality disorders are. And the schizoid, I'll read it to you real quick. If I can find it. I can find it somewhere, I know. Anyway, the schizoid is basically, here they are. Neither desires nor enjoys close relationships, including being part of a family. Almost always chooses solitary activities. Has little, if any, interest in having sexual experiences with another person. Takes pleasure in few, if any, activities. Lacks close friends or confidants other than first-degree relatives. Appears indifferent to the praise or criticism of others. Shows emotional coldness, detachment, or flattened affectivity. So, the schizoid Aspie will be the one that really doesn't want to go out there and make friends. And the difference, though, that you have to, or to differentiate the, sorry, I probably said that wrong. That word is really hard for me to pronounce. I don't know why. The Aspie from, the schizoid Aspie from simply the schizoid really just doesn't like people. It's not that they hate people necessarily, it's just they really don't want friends. They prefer their own, they prefer solitude, and they prefer their own company. The Aspie schizoid doesn't necessarily push people away because they don't like people. They don't like emotions because they don't know how to deal with them. And so when they push away those people, they're pushing away the emotional attachment because they don't know how to react or how to feel in certain situations, which all Aspies, they have trouble with that. But the actor, for instance, will probably learn a lot faster how to deal with those emotions and how to deal with those people and how to deal with reactions. Even though, personally, as an actor, I apparently, to other people on the outside, I come off as fairly normal, but internally, I'm constantly asking myself, did I just do something weird? Was that awkward? Should I have done this? Is that right? Does this person really like me? I can't tell most of the time, especially with friendships. You know, it's weird because you either think that person really likes you and you're excited, or you have no idea. But in truth, they may not like you at all, and they're trying to push you away. I mean, not to that extreme, because obviously, for the actor at least, if they're trying to push you away, you can tell, because you've picked up on those social cues over time. You've learned what those are, because you've been pushed away so often. You know what it looks like. I mean, there is an adaptive side of Asperger's that a lot of people, I won't say a lot, but most people seem to ignore. Not ignore, but at least the officials seem to disregard at times, because they say, well, this is what Asperger's syndrome is, and if you don't display this, then you don't have Asperger's. Well, Asperger's is a mind thing. It's a great way of communicating, Alicia. That's my name, by the way, if you were wondering who I was talking to. Me. I'm talking to myself. They say if you don't display these things, then you don't have Asperger's, and that's not all doctors. Doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists who are familiar with Asperger's, they're able to pick up on it because they study it specifically. But Asperger's is a way of thinking. It's a different mind completely. The mind thinks this way, and that is very separate from everybody else. Normal, neurotypical people. And that's pretty much what Asperger's is. The lack of social inhibition, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. I know inhibition is, but if inhibition, whatever. You know what I mean. The lack of social skills, but logical thinking is very prominent there. You for instance, figurative speech or metaphors, they can elude the Aspie, but of course, like I said, there's this adaptive side. There's this adaptive side to some Aspies that for instance, I know sarcasm. I know what sarcasm sounds like, and I know when you're being sarcastic most of the time. Sometimes it still eludes me. I'm just like, was that a joke? I have to ask. But most of the time I get it. And most of the time I get figures of speech. For instance, I'm going to put something on the table. And that was actually a figure of speech that another woman on another video gave an example of, but it's a good example. I'm going to put something on the table, meaning I'm going to make a proposition, but the Aspie might actually physically wait for you to put something on the table. And sometimes I get those mixed up. Sometimes when somebody says I'm going to put something on the table, I either immediately go to, okay, that's a figure of speech, they're making a proposition, and then it's not that, and then they're actually going to put something on the table, because I don't necessarily pick up on how they say it, I'm just picking up on what they're saying. Not all the time, sometimes I do, but... And then it might be the other way around, when they're saying, I'm going to put something on the table, and I wait for them to put something on the table, but they're really, it was the figure of speech that time. So about 50-50, I get them right most of the time, because I realize that when they say it's a whole new can of worms, they're not talking about a literal can of worms, but that's where my mind goes first. I picture a can of worms. I just think of a can of worms. I don't actually think of the figure of speech as it is. Yeah, so I will probably be making another video. That was just going over the subtypes. I said I was going to go over the signs and symptoms, but this video is already about 15 minutes long. So I will make another video going over the basic signs and symptoms of Asperger syndrome, and hopefully putting them into perspective for you guys, for everyone, because I think that there's a massive lack of perspective on the internet of what Asperger's really is, because about a month ago I had no idea what it was, and then I started doing all the research my little heart desired, which is literally for 2 weeks straight doing nothing but researching Asperger's. And I found out, wow, That's me to the T. And that rhymed. I'm out of time. Huh? That didn't quite rhyme because it said rhymed. Anyway, so, yeah, hopefully this helped you understand, because I thought that Asperger's was one thing. I thought all Asperger's were those loners, or those outcasts that just made no friends ever and they didn't understand social cues. But no, they can learn. They're people. We are people. We learn, and we learn rather quickly compared to most people. We usually pick up on things that other people would never pick up on unless it was pointed out to them. So I hope this helped, and have a good day.